Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott from the Prog Corner. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's a big day for me. One of my favorite bands in the world is joining me. They're on standby. They're in New Jersey right now. They're fixing to do their headlining set at Prog Stock. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Shane Atkinson, Beau West from the great band Evership. How you doing, guys?
What's up, man?
So I guess Friday we had an album listening party over there.
We did.
Saturday, yesterday.
Saturday. Saturday.
Yep, it was awesome.
Yeah, it went
Yeah,
really
how'd
well.
that go? How was the initial reaction from the peoples?
Dude, I was surprised. It's 10 in the morning. And the night before, Prog Stock started on Friday. So
people were partying.
People were up until 3 or 4 in the morning.
And then we had the whole park full.
Yeah, the park was full. There were 50 people there at 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, they loved it. We sold out of CDs. We should have brought more. We sold out already, even before today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Before Saturday, I should say. So
that's really, not going to go well after your set's done and you got no CDs to sell.
I know. Well, we got the older albums, and people are still buying them as well. But yeah, no, it went well.
Well, I'm going to be hitting you up here in a little bit for I know you still got some vinyl left on the first album.
Yeah. That's true.
And I definitely need that, and I definitely need a signed copy of that. So you and I will talk about that a little bit.
We'll make that happen.
Now, this is not your first trip to Prog Stock.
No, 2018 was our first trip. We showed up at the initial one just to kind of scout it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom announced us at that one.
At the first one.
At the first one that we were going to play in 18. So
yeah. And we met Tom in
at Rosfest.
At Rosfest when it was a PA.
So
and you did Rosfest. Well, that was like the year before, right? 2017.
Yes.
Yeah. Rosfest happened pretty quickly for us. We just
so now we got to get you on Cruise to the Edge.
Yeah.
We're trying.
I think we can make that happen.
We've made comments.
Yeah. I've seen some of them, but we got friends in high places. We can make that happen. If you guys are serious about getting on that boat, we'll make that happen.
Yeah,
awesome.
Well, they know who we are, and they know we're eager. So
well, that's the biggest challenge of a band in this particular genre, right? Is how do you make an imprint? How do you make an impact? It's not via radio. I mean, so it is sometimes like an uphill battle. So how does a band like Evership find their footing and gain audience? It's rough.
It keeps kind of impressing us. We've had a new uptick. It's been, of course, I feel like the deck's stacked.
Yeah,
much like Leslie Hunt's song. She has a song called about the music industry.
That's right. We love Leslie Hunt.
Yeah, we just listened to District 97 yesterday.
Oh, they're great.
Phenomenal. So it's tough to find footing, but what's really great is the more laid back and the more albums we crank out and the more we just have fun with people. And it just seems to be we have to remind ourselves that's just a slow grassroots.
It's a build.
And to keep it fun and about the music, because if you don't, then you just get all, it's like, why can't we break into anything? Why can't we do this? Yeah. And then it can
be frustrating. There's, as you know, Scott, there's a ton of bands. I heard from a DJ in North Carolina that like 1,200 prog albums are released every year, something crazy like that.
I was actually trying to do the math in my head the other day. I came up with a number right around 1,000.
Yeah.
Because I figure I listen to 200 new prog albums every year, and I figure I'm only getting maybe 20%.
I know, it's insane. And
so
when you come out with an offering, you're like, man, it's an uphill.
It's cool having some footing though with this group, because it helps just get you out there and everybody kind of support everybody.
Yeah.
So
true
that's that's what I really like about this genre too, is like everybody supports you constantly in one way or another. So
we don't have the kind of rap battles and those kind of beefs where we're going to be gunning other prog musicians down in the street.
No. Because no, you're right.
Although if we did, it might actually help the visibility of the genre. So maybe we're onto something there. You and Neil Morris need to come up with like some fake beef. Just come up with some stuff, just some outrageous tweets.
Have all these old guy fight videos.
Smack videos.
That wouldn't be a bad thing at all. Now, let's talk about the set tonight. I don't want you guys necessarily to give me any set spoilers, but you can if you want, because I'm not going to publish this till tomorrow. What's the set going to be looking like?
Well, we're doing so I don't know if you understand kind of what's happening. We really try to focus on getting Act 2 of the Uncrowned King finished this year and getting it out. So we kind of had to between that and some scheduling issues of people's lives. We're still kind of rolling off of COVID or the effects of COVID as the impacts. The ripples.
Exactly.
So we just kind of couldn't pull it together this year for Prog Stock, but we're going to be full band next year.
Okay.
But what we did offer Tom was we tried to what can we do just to represent.
Right.
And so we came up with a listening party, which was a success. It's the first time they've done it. And I think they may make that an institution because it was really cool.
Yeah, awesome. It was fun.
Michelle Moog was there and, she did some yoga in the morning.
Nice.
And then people were starting to leak in with coffee, and it just turned into this really cool organic. We're in the Moog Memorial Park, which is across the street from the venue. And, it was just really cool, man.
Yeah, it was awesome.
This was really, really nice and organic. But anyway, so I'm glad that happened. I got up there and I just talked all about the album. Everybody was real receptive, and it was neat.
So the set tonight, not a full band.
No,
not a full band.
Well, I will tell you that we have Beau and I are doing an unplugged thing. So we're going to be
just piano and vocals,
piano
just hanging
vocal.
out there.
Hanging out there. I mean,
Nice.
as a buddy of ours was saying yesterday, at the end of the day, it is about the song. I mean, all the production and all the fiddly bits are fun, but people, a good song's a good song. I don't care what genre it's from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And at the end of the day, Evership is in fact a 2-piece, right? I mean, we don't have James is not an official member.
No, well, it's not so much about membership, Scott, as it is. Beau and I are the core. Yeah, we're kind of a duo. That's how it was founded. That's how it still is. And people kind of come in and out from a live perspective. And we call them the band. We have a couple of guys that have been with us for like 5 years now. So they're like Ben Young,
John Rose.
Yep. We've got a new drummer this time. We've got
you do? Okay.
Yeah. We got a new drummer who's going to be on the road with us. He's played with. His name is Andrew Delph. He has played. He's a player in town. He went to Belmont School of Music, like a good bit of us did.
Well, you guys are based in Nashville, so you have no shortage of good musicians to pull from, right?
Yeah. And we met Andrew through Neil.
Yeah.
So
really?
We know Neil and that camp, and we touch base with them every now and then. And so we kind of through the grapevine found it was weird because at our first when I first met Andrew, I'm like, God, this guy looks familiar. I did a thing with Neil's group before, and we didn't realize that we had been on stage twice together without knowing each other.
Oh, really?
Andrew, yeah.
So Andrew, I was like, oh, hey, I know you. And now we're in a band together.
It's a small world, but man, today at Prog Stock, you talk about an all-star lineup going on there, man. I mean, Orpheus 9, Dave Kirshner, and the great Fernando Perdomo, the amazing Rachel Flowers, Adam Holzman. If any of my listeners don't know who he is, Google him. Pattern Seeking Animals, doing their second or third live show ever.
Yep.
And I'm stuck in Ohio.
We're kind of wondering why you weren't up here, honestly.
Yeah, my wife got me those Iron Maiden tickets 16 months ago. So, and I'd never seen them. I'd never seen Maiden. So,
you know what, dude? I was in exactly the same spot 2 years ago. And they came into town for some grand tour or whatever.
Right.
And a buddy called me up and said, hey, man, I got 2 tickets on the floor for Maiden. I said, I've never seen a Maiden show. So I went, and I was not disappointed.
No, that was a great show. It was everything I wanted. It's Maiden for crying out loud.
Bruce is out there with his flamethrowers, and it was awesome.
Well, I got to say, listening to Missive Pursuit, once them drums start rolling in and that guitar kicks in, I half expected to hear Bruce Dickinson start singing in that track. Right? I mean, I'm not disappointed that it was Beau, but I kind of heard a little Maiden in there.
Dude, that's a great observation.
Yeah.
It does have that,
the rolling drums, and then that. And if I didn't check, but I'm not. I don't have perfect pitch. I got relative pitch. It sounds to me like it's in the key of E,
Right.
which every Maiden song is.
Oh, yeah.
That-
So that yeah, you can put his foot up on the monitor and dig in.
That's right. That's right. So you've got this planned. You said you've got some full band gigs planned. What's that looking like? Can you reveal anything today? Or
I can tell you this for now, we're going to be somewhat local.
Okay.
And it's mostly going to be this is a new band. Obviously we got a lot of stuff to go over. We're going to be focusing, we'll do some stuff off of 1 and 2, but we're really going to be focusing on the Uncrowned King. So
yeah.
So by the end of the year, when we can build it all up, we'll probably have a good portion of the rock opera live.
Yeah. Good.
So,
yeah.
Well, as you know, I am of the opinion that the Uncrowned King Part 1 was one of the greatest prog rock albums in the last 10 or 15 years. It's absolutely stellar. I was absolutely in love with it. Had Transatlantic not dropped an album last year, you would have had the top spot. But I absolutely loved that record. So you got pipped just by a little bit.
I know.
But I got to say, this new album, I kind of expected a carbon copy. The album covers look similar, with the two princes on the tower. And then I put it on. Hey, thank you for sending me an advanced copy, by the way.
You're welcome.
And it was nothing like I expected.
Good or bad? Good or bad?
It couldn't be more different than Part 1. I feel a whole different vibe. It took me by surprise. And I got to say, the first couple listens, I didn't know what to think. I'm probably on spin number 15 or 16. It's incredible. It's so good, guy. Congratulations. Talk to me a little bit about the writing process and how you go from, Act 1, which is such a masterpiece. How do you do an Act 2 and keep that level that high?
Wow. Okay, so that's a big question to answer.
Yeah, it is.
I would say, so Scott, just to lay a bed for that answer, I wrote a lot of the music before I ever tried to do Evership. So all the music you're hearing from these last 4 albums or stuff I had already written, and they really didn't have subject matter attached to them. They were just stuff I had on little tape clips as I was writing software in the late 90s and 2000s. I had dropped out of music and in a disappointment. I really wanted to distance myself from it. But when I came back to it, I had this deep repository of music. So it really, the Evership is kind of a process. Evership was really, when I met Beau, there was a song called Ultima Thule. You may not know this. I don't know if we've told this.
I love that song. That's my favorite song off the first album, man.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Love that song. Well, Flying Machine or Ultima.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They're both genius tracks.
So that song was originally called The Tale of the Evership.
Okay.
And we were trying to think of a band name, and I had thought of a name called Ultima Thule.
Yeah.
Which I really liked. I like the concept of like the kind of the old world, falling off the edge of the world. It evokes all that progginess, doesn't have point of no return and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I hit the web, and of course what you don't want to see is, you put in a name in the web and you get back a band. That's what you don't want.
Yeah.
Because now even if they were, and this was a metal band from like Sweden or something, right?
Yeah. Of course.
And they weren't huge, but they were, they had YouTube footage and they had what I was like, I don't want to, don't want to step on their toes.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
Don't call your band Magenta.
Hey man, I've always liked that term Evership. Why don't we switch it? Why don't you call the song Ultima Thule? And because the subject matter was the same, and call the band Evership. I was like, that's a great idea, man.
That's a great call. And you're right. It is so important in the age of Google. You got to Google any potential name before you latch onto it full time. So, yeah, I was going to ask you about the origin of the name, because it is a really cool name. Yeah. But more importantly to me is why in the world Harold Bell Wright?
So, man, I stumbled on that story. I kind of have a literature background in school. I was a dual major, music and lit, and I stumbled on that story, man, almost 20 years ago now, 15 years ago. And I just liked what I liked about it was, you know, my dad was really into Westerns, and so was my mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was that one, that John Wayne movie.
Yeah, the John Wayne movie. And
Yeah.
this guy's the distinction of selling, you know, over 1 million copies
Yeah.
of his books. Now this is like 1900,
Yeah.
1900
Way back when that was unheard of.
Yeah, you didn't do that. There was a literally
Dickens was the only one that did that.
right. Dickens, well, and Mark Twain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and he was kind of a contemporary of Mark Twain. Dickens
Right.
was about 50 years earlier, but still. But you can see the draw of influence. What I want to know is who did Prince and the Pauper and who did the Uncrowned King first, because they have the same plot line.
Yeah.
So one is Twain, one is Harold Bell Wright. I wonder who kind of drew from
Right.
who, because they were close enough. But anyway, I like Wright's. I actually like Wright's capture of the early American dialect better than Twain's. I think actually he did a better job. Now he didn't make the cut. He wasn't the guy
Right.
who got into the literary circles, but
Exactly.
but his stuff was. If you watch that story, that Shepherd of the Hills, I think is that
Yeah.
one.
That's
And,
one.
it's a cool story. And I tell you something else people may not realize about Harold Bell Wright is he actually wrote a proto science fiction story.
Okay.
Like 1920. This is
Wow.
before Asimov.
Wow.
This is before H.G.
That's
Wells.
awesome.
This is for all these guys. It's not that great, but it's you
Right.
got to take it into context of what.
Oh, he's got a great story. Whether his books were any good or not. Here's a guy who went from being his mother and father deserted him in Ohio. He
Yeah.
had no place to go. He's a homeless bum, and
Right.
somehow he reinvented himself into a preacher and a million selling author.
Right.
There's a great tale of Americana just in his story, right?
Dude, it really, really is, and that comes out in the depth of his writing. That's what I like about like Twain. I mean, I'm not ragging on Twain. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah, you are.
There's a depth of life in Harold Bell's work that I don't see it in Twain.
Right.
So anyway, so this story also was just out of the blue of all, like he made about 20 works. This one just kind of jumped out. It was so bizarre.
Yeah.
In the stream of his writing. So I loved it. I loved the energy. It just began to evoke things in me. And so it took me a long, long time to kind of get my hands around what he was saying. On a first read, I was like, okay, this is a monotheistic statement or whatever. But the more I read it, the more I realized he was making a statement about unity and disunity in society and the world, and looking forward to an age when people would be more unified.
So perhaps a little bit more multi-layered than what John Bunyan was giving us, 300-400 years earlier.
Yeah. So he borrowed that language from Bunyan,
Right.
and then he borrowed the delivery mechanism from Dickens with the Christmas story, right?
That's right.
And then he had this plot of the Prince and the Pauper, which again I will argue. I don't know who pulled from who.
It's the chicken and the egg.
Yeah, it may have been that they were both influenced by a very ancient Chinese tale that has this plot. Well, we know the Prince and the Pauper with the twins and the false twin
Right.
with the power, and then that it's not a new story in that regard. But his synthesis of it was really intriguing to me, and so I was like, this would make a cool rock opera. This is 10 years before I put the music to it. But now to tie all this in a bow. So the reason I went into that discussion about the Deep Reservoir, for me, it was a matter of taking that pool of songs. I had to work the initial albums out of that work, because those are the ones that snapped into me as, okay, these are plainly prog.
Yeah.
So why don't I just go and put the nearest thing to me, which at that point was my struggle to get back to music.
Yeah.
In my own interpersonal, wars. Let me take these songs and infuse it, and that's where you get like Silverlight and Flying Machine. All those are about me trying to overcome, the crap in my life to get back to where I was as a musician, and find some resolution in that. And then I met Beau, and we kind of started culling this material. And then when 2 was done, I thought, okay, maybe it's time for the Uncrowned King. We had a couple of things that directions we could have gone, but went to Uncrowned King. So really, man, I had read the story for about 5 years at that point, maybe longer, maybe even 10 years, and so I kind of pretty firm grasp of how it might play out. So I just started pulling songs that kind of emotionally hit the narrative, and then it was a process really of taking something very abstract and making it a little more concrete.
Right. So where along that process did you realize one album isn't going to do the trick for this story.
Real early.
Okay.
Real early. Yeah, there's no way to develop. So if I can, so Act 1 really is about establishing the world.
Well, yeah, it ends with the king dying, so we really don't get any of the meat and potatoes in Act 1.
No, you don't get the story. It's all establishing shots. That's the
right.
Film.
Yeah,
you're just building.
That's our B-roll.
Building the characters, and that's it. And then boom, and then so that's why I left that cliffhanger there. So I think what you're detecting in Act 2 is basically the story.
Yeah.
It's like we get it. We've established the fact that, okay, there's a pilgrim, and now he's in the quiet room, and now he's being visited by voices of life, and they're telling us this story that has these two princes, and they're on a tower, and they see the future, and they want to go, and then they finally go, and then the king dies.
Yeah.
So,
and now we get to the heart of the story, the two princes. The story begins, and the new album, like I said to you, has a little different feel. Were you aware of that? Were you trying to distance yourself musically? Because thematically, there's no, you can't, distance part 1 and Act 2. It's the same story, but musically, they do feel like, separate pieces of a whole. Were you cognizant of that? Was that something you tried to do?
Not really. I bring back the theme from It Might Be into Uncrowned at the very
at the end, yeah. And then, of course, the reprise.
And then the reprise ties the two ends.
But that's together. It, right? Musically, there's nothing else.
No, there's nothing else.
I didn't hear anything else. But
no, you're right. You're right.
You got so much stuff going on. I kind of almost expected to, what's that in the background? Oh, that's It Might Be, or Yet to Come.
Yeah. You have some reflections there in the reprise. We won't spoil
right. Yeah, that's cool sounding, by the way. That's really cool, man. That's giving me all kinds of Genesis feels there.
Oh, yeah.
Just awesome.
I was going for a little bit of Rush there too, but
yeah. Oh yeah.
Hemispheres.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I'm free of opening up to my influences here, but So no, I think you know what it feels like to me, and Beau, you can chime in here too.
Yeah, please do. Shane, you're just monopolizing this whole thing, man.
I'm the writer, so I'm going to open my mouth.
Go ahead, finish up. Jeez Louise.
Yeah,
Just real quick, I think this part 2 feels the way it feels because now you've gone it goes interpersonal. It goes into the hearts of the two brothers.
Right.
That's why. Mm-hmm. That's why there's this shift. You went from this third person God view of everything to this first person interpersonal. And so that second one just flows. It just goes into this deep river. Now you're up and down with what's going on in the mind and the emotion of the two characters. I think that's where that feel comes from.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. I mean, it is almost more accessible and immediate.
Yeah.
Because it is more personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it gets into like cuts that are a little like Law of Ages is a little more of a cut that's very, I would say, prog radio friendly, almost radio friendly. Should I say that?
Other than all the counterpoint at the end.
Right. But
this is Evership after all.
Right. Yeah, and when he writes, that's how I sell it too, is that like, I try to not listen to any of the music beforehand.
Okay.
Which everybody kind of takes as like me being lazy and not wanting to practice.
Yeah, you're a lazy bum.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they say.
But everybody always asks me after I get done singing an album or we get done singing, they're like, you don't write any of this stuff. How do you get the emotion going?
Right.
So what I do is while I'm recording, I get the emotion at the same time. So that's the magic that's always worked, is that like our first album was really, really tough because he had to learn my voice,
right,
and not try to get me to sound like Freddie Mercury or Steve
Walsh.
Or Steve Walsh.
I was going for Steve Walsh,
and so he had to. There was a lot of bumps and bruises on one because we had to figure out the dynamic. And then once I figured out the dynamic that I really, really liked his music, it's like a movie soundtrack, and when I sang to it emotionally, it actually worked better. So I did this trick where I just didn't listen to anything. The day we go in, I listen to like demos, and then we just do it 2 lines at a time. We sing 2 lines at a time, and then that helps me gather the emotions and take it out of every single part. So it's crazy how it works out because
No,
the music.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I always think about these pop singers, and they're
Yeah.
trying to be so, deep and thoughtful, and they really mean what they're singing, but they have been in the studio recording this thing for 4 months. They've
Right.
taken over 1,000 takes, and then they do the music video where they're lip syncing it 1,000 times, and then they go on stage and they're playing it every night. Yeah, at the end of the day, that emotion probably isn't real. It's probably a little manufactured by the 1,000th time you're doing a song. So I can totally understand what you're saying about that.
And that's why I was talking to, I won't name him in Nashville, he's a big rock star,
Right.
but I'll keep his name off the off the
There's a time to name
interwebs. But anyway, I was talking with him. I had like a 2-hour conversation. I said, the reason your music is so, he's like, man, I'm starting to see all these young people come out. I'm like, it's because you can't fake that. You can't fake that emotion and that camaraderie that those bands had back then. You can't fake it in moving forward.
Right.
The bands that get close are the bands that are actually out there wood shopping. I just one off the top of my head that can be considered pop would be Greta Van Fleet. I went and saw them, and everybody's like, Zeppelin knockoff this, that, and the other thing. But when I went and saw them and saw they're all brothers and they have that like past, this is a phenomenal show.
They're great. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah, Zeppelin's an influence.
Yeah,
Cry Me a River.
It's not derivative at all. It's original.
They're a great band. Yeah, they have influences.
Yes.
So what?
But them being that young, and then I looked out across the crowd while I was there.
Yeah.
And you had people you had guys that had, there was guys with Pink Floyd t-shirts on.
Yeah.
And then they were like 60, 70 years old.
Right.
With their son that had a Zeppelin t-shirt on, who's 14.
I love it.
You had anywhere from 14-year-olds to 70-year-olds in the crowd. And I was like, there we go. That's the magic that keeps it going.
Exactly. Why would anybody be against that?
Right.
That's exactly what you want.
Exactly. Exactly.
You want it to continue.
And I feel like in this genre, it's starting to happen slowly but surely. It's just it's a slow turn, but it's been pretty awesome watching kids come along and it continue the magic. And I wouldn't want to pull away from that. We wanted to start a rock band and we said, let's start a rock band. And when I heard his music for the first time, I was like, okay, the emotion was the important part for me. When I first saw The Wall, when I was younger, when I first saw all the experience, this stuff when in the 90s for me, that's what I want to give to. I don't want to suck all the emotion out of it and just put something out there and be like, isn't this cool? And like you said, it gets manufactured. And so I don't want to take that away. So
now everybody knows about Shane's past. Dude, I think I even bought the Curious Fools first CD.
Oh, wow.
I remember a friend of mine was telling me about this band, and he played me a song. I think it was called I Will.
Oh, yeah. That was
off that first album. I actually bought that CD. So, when Evership came to light, I was actually really excited because, hey, wait a second. I know this guy's music already. So we know a little bit about your history, Sean, but Shane, but Beau, I mean, you just like came up from out of nowhere. And I know that's not a fact. I know that's not true. I know you got a past. You got a story to tell.
He has a history.
Nobody with a voice that good does not have a history, but I'd like to hear a little bit about, what you were doing before you met Shane.
I grew up in a small town in Oregon. And so it was like, everybody's like, man, you have a great voice. You have a great voice. Well, I grew up in the time of like, my biggest influences are like Chris Cornell, and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so growing up, and then by the time we wanted to start our garage band, Dave Matthews and all that crew had rolled in.
Yeah.
So it was like all these kind of Americana crooners were going. And so it was really hard for me to find a home for my voice. I come out with this rock vocal and everybody's like, shh,
Born 10 years too late.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I kept chasing my tail constantly with it.
Right.
And then my final rigmarole with it or wrestle with it was I had an amazing band in Nashville. I had a phenomenal bass player. I had a great guitar player. I had an amazing drummer. And we finally put a rock set together that I felt was, you know, and stuff started happening, like Wolf Mother had been out there, and all these kind of one-off rock bands that people were like, oh, this band, they hold their own. And so we tried for the last time, and I just like, it just got so disheartening because Nashville became a place of like, if you didn't have your Live Nation feed up or you didn't have your social media, the social media aspect came along, was like, if you don't have those numbers up, you can't play.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't find a venue. So we kept trying to find a venue, and we found a couple. I had people call me a year later going, hey, you can come on our stage now. And I was like, we're not a band anymore.
That's classic Nashville, by the way.
So
yeah.
I just got to a point, like you said, when you, by the way, thanks for the top 50 vocalists. That was awesome.
Yeah, well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. To all the people watching this, I mean, if for no other reason but Beau West's voice, if that's the reason you're checking out Evership, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we are too. I mean, it was
amazing.
Thank you.
Well deserved, Beau.
And you know, when I finally kind of just let it go, you know, I told my wife, it was funny. I went to put the guitar up in the closet, and I go, I don't want to play this thing. I don't want to see this thing. And she goes, if you could have anything in music, what would it be? I go, I want no creative control. I want no writing. I don't want to be a band leader. I just want to show up and sing and be beautiful.
Enter Shane Atkinson.
And then all of a sudden I got exactly
the perfect marriage.
Yeah. So it was amazing when he was like, you don't need to create, you don't need to write, just come sing. And I was like,
just sing.
It's weird. So
dude, that's all you need to do.
And people ask me, they're like, how is it doing this and being a rock star in your own right? And I said, it's a little weird now, 43 with kids and not coming out at 25.
Yeah.
But I think what's really cool about it is it's way more fun and accessible and like, what's the word? Fulfilling now. Like I get to go play for these people who truly love you.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. I mean, it takes all the fun and puts it right in. We're not like on the road burning ourselves out.
You could if you wanted to, but you know, you got families and stuff like that. And,
but we do we get called to come to these things, and people, it's always a good turnout, and it's always fun, and it's always, it's not always relaxed, but we make it happen.
It still works.
So it's,
well, you guys want to put on a good show. So there's going to be a little bit of that nervous energy because you don't want to disappoint people.
Well, and we play infrequently enough, and as you know, for any prog band, it's hard to pull it off live. So
Well, and to that point, to give you a quick insight on what we're doing tonight, it's kind of a surprise. I don't know how much of a surprise it is at this point.
We've been yapping about it.
Yeah, but we're playing right before Pattern Seeking Animals.
Yeah.
And we're getting to do a show with special guests. Can we name them? We get to be on with Rachel Flowers, Michael Sadler, and Pattern Seeking Animals doing a song all together. So
wow.
So what's really cool, to your point, what's really awesome is we're making a pretty big splash in a little amount of time.
Right.
And really what's cool is all these people reciprocating it and being very gracious with entering the family, this family that they've created. It's amazing. Yeah. So
it is like a prog family, isn't it, at the end of the day?
It really is, because the genre is so small in America. Yeah. As you know, it's much bigger in Europe, but it's very small here. So everybody, I would like to think that everybody's trying to raise all boats, so to speak.
Yeah,
we would hope so. Now, speaking of Michael Sadler, not only was he guest vocaling on the new Ryo Okamoto album, which he does a phenomenal job on. I don't know if you've heard that record yet, but oh my God, that's good. But he shows up on your new album. How did that happen?
We, pretty much, it's a pretty short story. We're at 2018, we played Prog Stock. I'll tell the story about what everybody was saying, the Whisper campaign and stuff when we met Michael. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, everybody was kind of like, 2018 rolled around and we were playing Prog Stock, and we came off of 2017 Rosfest was not the best show. It was our first show out.
Yeah, it was
so
our
it was
first
like,
show.
it was a tough gig. We were all nervous. It wasn't the best show we've ever had. So, but fast forward, we were
One song from that gig, didn't that show up on Evership too?
Yes.
In spite of it not being a great gig, the Serious Room was recorded there, right?
Parts of it.
Parts of it.
Parts
Yeah.
of the
I figured there was some post-production magic. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
There was a little bit. Yeah.
But yes, that it did come out, and
it wasn't that terrible. It was
wasn't-
just very nervous for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Sure.
And after I mentioned, like halfway through the show, I'm like, guys, this is our third show ever. Everybody went, yeah.
We're kind of like where PSA is now. Of course, we didn't have PSA's
Yeah.
background, but you know, it was kind of our third show.
But anyway, in 2018, everybody was like, you guys, you got to meet Sadler. And I was like, I just want to worry about my show. Like, I was like, not worried about him at all. And so I just wanted to have a good show. I didn't want to like meet this guy and then have this.
No.
So we got out there and we had a good show. He watched our entire set from side stage. And when we came off, he grabbed me by the hand and he goes, that was amazing. This was great. This was really, really great. And
awesome.
Right,
he's been around a long time. Dude paid his dues. But the one thing when you've been doing it as long as Michael Sadler's been doing it is you can identify talent.
Michael's he's a big
cheerleader.
He's a big cheerleader, but what I was going to say is he'll tell you what it is.
No, I bet
it's great. He doesn't know anybody, but
he doesn't need to at this point.
No,
Michael Sadler, man.
I know. So we basically developed a little friendship with him. Even there, it was great. I mean,
and his family came into town in Nashville, and we met his family and his wife and kids. And even here, we had a great time last night hanging out.
Yeah. So we ended up driving back to the hotel together last night.
And if you know anything about Jersey, driving in Jersey, it is I'm driving and I'm just like, they're laughing hysterically in the back and we can't get anywhere because you can't turn.
Yeah.
You can't make left turns and you just are constantly
going back around.
It's a go-kart track. So anyway, with him, we had an awesome hang with his family the first time I met them. And while he was in the studio singing, me and his family talked for like 2.5 hours, something like that. So what's really cool is they're just amazing people. His whole family, and he's so encouraging and great. And even playing on stage, we had one practice yesterday, and him and Pattern Seeking Animals and Rachel Flowers all in the same room practicing, and they just knocked it out. It's like, awesome. We ran it like 3 times.
Like, okay, we're ready to go.
We're ready to go.
Well, you're talking about Rachel Flowers, Dave Miros, and Ted Leonard. You're not talking about a bunch of slouches here. Those
not at all.
Pretty good at what they do.
Jimmy Keegan.
Jimmy Keegan is
Those guys have been very gracious. Ted, so
all of them.
I love Jimmy. Jimmy's one of my favorite drummers in the world. I love his style so much. But speaking of drumming styles, you were the drummer for Curious Fools, and you are the drummer for Evership. But you're also the keyboard player and the composer. Do you think there's one hat that's more important than another hat that composers had, or you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting here,
or the hat you don't need to wear anymore?
I'll give him some water. I'll be right back.
So,
all right, let's see about.
I think the drumming. So what happened with me drumming wise was I felt like I was the composer side of me was really fighting to get out.
Yeah.
And I'll be front and center with you. It did cause contention in the band. I wanted more creative input. They had a very kind of, and a lot of bands do this. They call it democratic. It's really kind of more communistic,
At the end of the day,
has power.
Stephen Murray and everybody else.
Right. Stephen was on the label, and so it made this really weird dynamic. And
I had a feeling I could read between the lines. I've been in bands too long. We know that.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And I don't want to drag anybody through.
No, I'm sure he's an awesome dude. He's a good singer. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, he was a great singer. And so to make a story short, I in reflection, as I look back, I wouldn't have been able to articulate this now, but as I look back, I see what was happening was I had kind of reached my limit with drums musically. Now, I'm not saying I was the best drummer in the world. I'm just saying I saw where that went, and it wasn't enough for what was inside of me. And so I really kind of killed my whole career not really understanding that I didn't need to do that. I just needed to shift it.
Right.
And so I went away for, a decade plus, as I, at the time that I left Curious Fools, we had a new record deal with Warner, and they were making all these promises, signing bonus and everything. But it was at that point that my son, Mike, had just been born. And I don't know, it's just a big shift for me. I was kind of done with that. And so I went on hiatus for a while. When I came back, it's the composer that wrestled. It's the composer that kind of, in a sense, kept me alive through that, because it just kept generating music. But at some point, it was like a pregnancy where this thing had to get out.
It just had to, yeah.
And the way I met him is you were doing commercials, like mastering.
So strategically, what I did to get back into the industry, because my contacts were gone. People were done, moved out. I mean, everybody I knew, the whole new crowd.
In Nashville, that's all it is.
Oh yeah.
Even studios that I had recorded and hung out in were gone. I mean, they just
promotion people, label people, A&R people,
publishing companies had switched over. There were only a handful.
Oh yeah.
Curve Records was the only company on Music Row that was still there from the time that I was there. So I had to start all the way from the beginning, and to commercials. I thought if I can start writing commercials again, which I did a little bit with back in the day. If I can do that again, I can start building up the studio, and then at a certain time, I will then start doing my own music. It was all very nebulous at that point.
Yeah.
But that, to answer your question, that's that transition,
and that's how we met. Is while he was doing a commercial. Mike Creeby, the guy that sings a lot of the backups on the album,
on the first album, right?
Yeah, all
of them. Me and Mike, all ahs and oohs and all those things. That's me and Mike.
Oh, Mike's still singing backup. Oh, I didn't know that. I thought he was just on the first album.
No, he's on all of them.
So what about his wife?
His wife
plays violin on some of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought she was involved somehow too.
Yes.
Yep.
So they were good friends of mine, and that's how me and Shane met. Is he was doing like a Bridgestone commercial about tires and fishing and American. Yeah. Take your boy fishing and get a new set of tires. Type of a commercial.
Nice.
And then he wanted Mike to be the lead singer. Yeah. And Mike goes, "No, but I have a perfect guy that sings this type of stuff. You should."
Right.
And that's how we met.
Yeah. That's how because we know he was the link.
Yeah.
So, and then Beau and I said, I'll call the guy. I was very, at that time in the development of Evership, I didn't know what I was making at that point. I was just picking out groups of music that kind of sounded like they were the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I was very, very protective of it. And I didn't want anybody involved that I didn't know. The guy I always thought from way back would sing was a guy named Jason Beto. And he was a kind of a life friend, but he had this kind of stellar voice. He could go up and down. And at that point, it was the 90s. Everybody was singing down here.
Yeah.
That's all I did better, Yeah. Nobody was singing like Chris Cornell. Yeah. Nobody was singing like Robert Plant or, who's the guy from, I don't know.
Yeah.
C. Walsh, I'm just throwing names out. But anyway, so I was really like Beau when he said, I know this guy, Beau West. I'm like, yeah, Mike, okay.
Whatever.
Let's just try your best. He said, I think I can do this. I wouldn't last more than one night, but I know a guy. I said, okay, give me his number.
Yeah.
We hit it off. We talked for like 2 hours, very similar influences.
Here's the thing. Shane's also so cerebral at some point.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, exactly. I'm usually, and this goes back to the mentality of, so the story goes, I'm usually the on-off guy. I'm usually like, we're in the studio singing. I'm like, Shane, is that piece of equipment on? That's all I have as far as technology. He's over there reprogramming the mainframe, the whole computer. And I'm like,
yeah, that's who he is.
Yeah. So in that spirit of that, when we first met and I started singing this stuff, I'm singing it. And the first time we met is we're doing these trials and he's recording me, but not saying much. He's just sitting there looking at his computer screen. Wow. And I'm singing and I'm singing.
Listening.
And finally we start having a conversation toward the end of the session. And he goes, well, okay. And I'm like, I'm the whole time I'm like, I guess I didn't make the cut. So I'm just like kind of sitting there and he's like, I'm like, well, if I do make the band, how do we? And he goes, oh no, you're in. Everything's great. I was like, oh, thank God.
I forgot to tell him.
Yeah, that reminds me of the story when Randy George was trying out for Neil Morris, and he drove all the way down, and
Yes.
Like, well, I hope you have a good drive back. They were messing with him the whole time before they ended up. Like, we're just kidding. You got the gig. Don't worry about it, bro.
Oh, he doesn't know how early he got the gig. I just had him come and sit and listen to the music. We're listening to the Ultima Thule, actually, the demo, without any.
I started singing some of the notes,
and he started hitting the notes like up in the stratosphere. He's like, this is close to me. We're just around the mixing desk and just listening.
Right.
He's like, and I was like, inside I was going like, oh yeah,
oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's not about hitting the high notes. You know that, Shane. You know that it's about what he brings to each register. Some people can sing high grade. Some people can sing the baritone stuff great. Some people have that mid range. But every single singer, besides that absolute top echelon, lose something along the way. Beau doesn't lose a thing. It's just sick listening to him sing, man. It's there's some guys I could listen to sing the phone book. David Bowie, Peter Gabriel, Win Butler from Arcade Fire. I don't care what
just the delivery is so awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Beau West in that same category.
Thank you so much. That's big honors. Thank you.
Yeah. So, you talked about the pandemic a little bit and how that changed what was going on. Do you think that, the rock operas, Act 1 and 2, obviously more thematic than Evership 1 and 2, but do you think the pandemic had anything to do with how different these two latest records sound to the first two? Or was it just you guys settling in and figuring out what you do?
You want me to go first?
Go for it, man.
I tell you what, the recording process, two was a little frustrating for us because Shane was trying to get this number 2 out quick before we played Prog Stock the first time. So, and I know he'll be okay with me saying it too. He's like, I'll never do that again. Rush an album that quick.
Yeah.
But we found out through like our recording process finally started kicking in, but it was still frustrating because I would sing something like 50 times. It was funny. I always hit the really crazy high stuff and everything. It was like 2 takes most of the time, and I'd be like, okay, sweet, the stuff I was really worried about, but it was all the little inflection stuff. But
it's the little stuff that always gets you.
Yes, it was the ends of words like T's and D's, all these little inflection things that Shane has really helped me with as a singer, and not be so lazy on the phrasing.
Right.
So when we got into your point about the stuff sounding different, he finally found all the technology. I'm not even going to get into the
we wouldn't understand anyway, Beau.
Yeah, exactly. It's just beep boop beep boop. Yes, I don't. Again, he's over there doing this. I have no idea what that means. So anyway, when we started recording like we do, like I said, the way the sausage is made is like we go 2 lines at a time, so we can really dive into his the literary stuff, especially all the deep words. It's real fun learning all this stuff live, by the way, and trying to.
I bet. I bet.
Hey, Beau, don't memorize the Bible or Evership catalog. So
that's a challenge.
It's very, but what's really awesome about the recording process now with what you're hearing is us finally relaxing and letting our hair down in these last 2 albums, where it's been like this effortless. I mean, we really work hard. We got caught in a snowstorm at his place, and we ended up getting caught for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
We did 3 whole days. We recorded half of 2 or
half or more of 2.
Half or more of 2 in only 2 days. Yeah. So it's like the work's there, but it's becoming way more fun.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to get to the high parts, or I'll hear a part and just be like, hey, rewind that part. I want to do a, over it, or I want to do this, or let's try that. So
Law of Ages is a good example of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And if I can just
go ahead.
No, if I can just distill it out, I think we're both trying to, what I would say, in addition to what Beau is saying, we finally started to learn each other.
Yeah.
Is what was happening. And so the first 2 albums were really just me coming back to town and just figuring out what I was about, just figuring out what it needed to sound like. And it was very confusing, very stressful, and very very personal.
Yes.
But by the time 2 was,
And to cut you off, the translation to me is he's looking at his computer listening. And when he really hates something, I can't tell. So it's like all of a sudden he's listening and he'll go, okay, that was interesting. And I'm like, what? Don't say that.
You know what that means.
Like,
Yeah,
he's
that's
like,
not good.
yeah,
You
but
don't want that.
but it turned out that it really was interesting to him. So some of the interesting stuff actually got used in the takes.
Yeah.
But at first I was like, interesting? Really? I'm like, what? Stop saying this crap. Say, hey, Beau, this sounds like total dog poo poo or something.
but straight.
But it was funny when I'd really hammer something, like hit it, and I'd be like, man, I murdered that part. He'd be like, okay, that was good. And I'm like,
well, from an outsider who's been listening to Evership from day one,
Cool.
It just sounds to me like a band that's figured it out. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah, well-
it's like it's really hard to knock it out of the park on a debut album. Not all of us are King Crimson or Kansas and can
Right.
figure it all out, you know,
Right.
on day one. It
Right.
takes a little while. And hearing you guys talk about the growing pains of Evership 2 totally makes sense because there's some really wonderful moments on there, but it does feel just maybe a little bit underbaked. But then Uncrowned King 1 and 2, you just feel like this is a band ready to explode and ready to conquer the world. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for you guys. I really am.
awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's just great stuff. Now, you know, writing prog, I know you don't really think about it when you're writing, oh, I'm going to write a prog song, but you know you're writing for Evership, dog.
Yeah.
You know you're writing prog, so that's got to enter your head a little bit. It's like, will this chord progression sustain a bunch of fiddly bits? You know,
Right.
I mean, you got to be thinking a little bit about that.
Man, I tell you, this is quite honestly no. I just let me. Okay, so let me restate that. The only way it does influence me is I don't feel like I have to be concerned about economy.
Yeah, the stopwatch can be put away.
Yeah,
The chorus can come in at the 3-minute mark.
Yeah, it's like I have the freedom to build a desert scene at the beginning of the song if I want to, and I can't. That's what's freeing about it. It also causes a lot of problems in the market, and I know that as I'm doing that, wow, I am distancing a lot of people because they're, you know, Beau was showing one of our songs to somebody, and she said something like, "Did he used to do commercials?" Remember that?
It was a guy that, it was a
That's a
lady
good
that
one.
manages for Bonamassa and
wow.
other people.
Wow.
And she goes, did he used to do commercials? He mixes like he does commercials. I'm like, yeah. And she's like,
I
it sounds like a
film,
movie
too.
soundtrack. She's like, I'm not saying it's bad. She's like, it sounds phenomenal. It's just,
But this guy did commercials. You sure you didn't mean infomercials like
Right.
the half-hour long ones? Oh, that's a good point. That's funny.
But
I think the problem prog got into in the early 2000s was they were using that old mind state of the 70s and 80s where you've got to get a song on radio, you know, heavy rotation, and then you got to get on a tour and do this. You know, the rules are so different now.
Yeah.
And I think prog bands are starting to figure that out, that, you know, the ways of yesteryear aren't going to work now.
Well,
you've got to come up with your own plan.
I also, being a newbie to the genre, you know, what was really difficult is, like, I think for me is kind of, our first album came out and people really didn't know what to do with it, which I thought was really awesome, because that's awesome in its own right.
Yeah,
If people want to argue and say, well, Evership isn't prog, okay, cool. That even gives us more.
Absolutely.
Right, that's great.
Yeah,
But where do we, and my whole life, as I told you in my story, it's been like, where does Beau West's voice fit anyway? So I've always been kind of this weird, not outcast, but weird, and I don't want to sound like a victim by any means, but weird, kind of like, where do we put this guy? One of the best, the guy that did the photos for us that were on our first album, that kind of steampunk with me with the hat and all that. Rory White, amazing. He did the album covers too. He made that tower out of a little, it's a miniature set.
I think I saw a video.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a video, and we're going to do a part 2 with that too.
Anyway,
That's wild, man. Who knew?
I've known him for 17 years,
Wow.
and he's one of the best guys that said, he goes, when he first heard Evership and agreed to do some of the stuff for us. He's like, we showed up for that photo shoot with us in the cube flying through space.
Yeah.
He goes, Beau, I got to tell you, I've been listening to this. And he goes, it's in heavy rotation with Queen, Boston, everything. And he goes, you finally found a home for your voice. And I was like, yes, it was like one of the best things I've ever heard. And so what's cool is when we get like a review that's like, these guys aren't prog, I'm like, okay, cool. But we're still recognized as, you know, and I think in that mindset, what I love about Shane's writing is he doesn't just do fiddly bits to do fiddly bits.
Right.
They make sense in the song. And I really think that it reminds me, especially when his brother plays, when you watch his brother plays, his brother is a great combination of just like a Gilmore and Page. He's like, he's crazy.
With some Brian May.
Brian May
definitely.
Definitely get some May there. When you watch him play, though, it's like it'd be like he'll hold these notes with this. He'll be playing a Fender and he'll hold these notes, and it's so Gilmore all over the place, Pink Floyd. But then he'll switch over to a Les Paul, and I feel like he should have a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, like just 3 sheets to the wind, going. And that's the cool part about it is he captures all that spirit.
Yeah, my brother oozes 70s guitar. Man, it just comes out. It just comes out of him. As a matter of fact,
when we get together, he just is like, so Beau, sing Zeppelin all the time. My voice is wrecked after we're together.
When I record James, I have learned hit the record button as fast as possible because he just starts playing great stuff all the time. If I try to capture him and put him in a box, it's derived. Right. I just go, hey, what I want here is Neil Schon and you know whatever.
Yes.
Angus Young. Just
ready to go.
Ready to go, and I'll turn it on.
But you guys grew up together.
We did, and
it's like Roy Stolt from the Flower Kings was talking about having his brother Michael back in the band. After Jonas Rheingold, he's so busy with Steve Hackett and all that other stuff. He doesn't have time for the Flower King. So he's got his brother Michael back in the band. He's like, yeah, dude, I want you to play bass like on that one Joni Mitchell record. You know, and because they grew up together, they know exactly what the other one's talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely have that brother magic. And I would tell you that is James does a good job of contributing that 70s sound to Evership. And I wanted that. Like the Evership stuff, the music, I'm just going to say, in my mind, I'm very careful about being original. I'm very sensitive about not being derivative or whatever. But I did intentionally produce it to sound older. I did want a 70s production, and that's intentional. So it's kind of like new. It's kind of like, you know, modern composition, but kind of produced like with an old sound. And
no, I think you're really hitting on something because you talk about influences, and early in the interview you said, hey, I wear them on my sleeve. Yet at the same time, when I listen to an Evership song or an Evership record, I can spot it some influences, but there's never been a single song or a single section of a song where I go, oh my God, that's Kansas, or that's Styx, or well, they just lifted that from Starcastle, man. I have never had that, and honestly, with most modern prog, I'm gonna get that at some point. You know, there's only 12 notes in the diatonic scale, my friend. You're gonna hear some things from time to time, but honestly, I have not detected that with Evership. So kudos to that.
Thank you. And that's a very nice compliment.
To his credit with all that too is whenever I get to hear the demos and sing to them, that's why the emotion's there constantly, because all the great deep cuts that I liked from like Zeppelin, or even there's a lot of Beatlesy stuff in here. It's Wait. There's certain guitar solos that hit that sound like
that was my song of the year for 2021, by the way.
Hey, we put that on the website. Thank you. That's in our bio.
Well, even like
perfect. It's hard to write the perfect song.
Even the end of
you did it.
I'm gonna butcher our own music. The end of you better put it
Fading Away.
Fading Away. The end of
it's on the new album.
On the new album. Super Paul McCartney Beatlesy ending.
I think so.
Yeah.
There are sections on the album that are very Beatles, or even Badfinger.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I was
the singer for It was the singer for Badfinger that I was trying to think of earlier. That Buzz.
Okay.
Paul Paul Rogers?
It was Paul Rogers. No,
Ham.
Paul Rogers is
Paul
Peter
Rogers
Ham.
is bad.
it's Bad Company.
Yeah.
Bad Company. But yeah, I hear some Bad Company sometimes.
No,
in Bill's
Paul
voice.
Rogers.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's some classic rock tropes
Yeah.
in there. Why not?
Well,
It's
look,
rock and roll.
Dude, I know,
You
and
know?
I love that. It's like the trick with prog for me right now is there, and I just, heart in hand, and in all humbleness and humility, there is a lot of people who are trying to sound like something.
Sure.
And that's what makes a lot of prog hard for me to listen to. But there's a lot of great prog out there too, and there's so much stuff out. It's just hard to find stuff. And you don't want to be negative about anybody.
No.
Do their thing, but
You don't.
But you find those people, and those people are starting to bubble up to the top.
They
the
are.
District 97s and and these festivals are pulling that out. We keep saying District 97 because we befriended them really early on, and we've done some shows with them. They're Leslie and Jonathan and
Terrific band.
and they're awesome people too.
They are really, really great.
John Wetton connection.
Yeah,
Strong.
David, John. Yep.
Well,
And
and
besides them, is there anybody else that you've been listening to? District 97 is a great call for anybody that doesn't know Leslie Hunt and them. But anybody else?
Of course, yeah. So that's kind of like that's the metal side of it, about as far as I go. And it was never a big.
I like Tea Time when we saw them.
Oh yeah, Tea Company. Yeah, I'm sorry with the name.
Tea Time.
Was it Tea Time?
Tea Time?
Tea Club.
Tea Club. Thank you. Yeah, the brothers.
That's Tea Club. Oh, what? Yeah, Tea Club, New
went,
Jersey brothers.
Yeah, and they went through.
Awesome.
When we saw them, they had just gone through a kind of a tragedy. Somebody got in a car accident and had all their equipment in it, and they were at Prog Stock the first year we went, 2017, just to watch.
Yeah.
And when we came in and were sitting in the crowd watching them, they were one of the standout shows, and they were acoustic. But to my point, them being acoustic, we're going to get back to. I really, really love the songwriting, and I really appreciate it's. The players are melding right into the songwriting. We saw the Zappa band on Friday, and I was just like, I didn't know what to expect, and so I went in kind of expectationless.
Right.
But they kind of would let the music get away from them in a way that was really cool. Like even the lead singer guy, he was like, man, I don't know where you went on that solo over there, but you went to space, and it was an amazing solo. But it's cool to see the songwriting kind of come back into it and settle in. And I really appreciate it when we come to these festivals and watch these people. They just, it is making a shift, so to speak.
Yeah, I see a lot more. The quality stuff starting to bubble to the top. Another band that I really like is a UK band called the Baroque Project.
Oh yeah, they're awesome.
So these guys are just great songwriting.
Detachment was a fantastic record.
Just top tier, and really nice. And and you want to see stuff like that, survive. The big train stuff, just that stuff that's really quality.
And being around Neil too. These last couple of years, because he's in Nashville too. But being around his camp and playing with some of his camp has been really cool too for me, because watching him construct a song, he's very heavy songwriting. I mean, there's a lot of fiddly bits and a lot of amazing musicianship, but it, like to Shane's kind of to lump them together, they write very specific solos and very standout things.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's hard not to kind of put Shane and Neil in the same basket. I mean, the similitude of a dream isn't too far removed from the Uncrowned King story. And then you got the Nashville connection. And then you got your boys in Glass Hammer down I-75 down there in Chattanooga. What is going on in Tennessee these days, man?
I know, man. We got the little, I've been talking with, we've been thinking about doing like a Prog South.
Yeah, Tennessee Prog All-Stars.
Yeah, just to pull in that trifecta. I've talked with Steve Babb about that.
It's not a horrible idea, because honestly, geographically, Tennessee is right in the middle of everything.
It is. It's not as far
as it really is.
So what we could do is you could hit your Rozfest down in the south, and then hit Prog South up there in the middle.
That's right.
And then kind of come up here to Prog Stock.
Or go the other way. You could go the other way too and go down and cruise the edge after that, whatever that is too.
Yeah. Well, that's got to happen. We got to get you guys on Cruise to the Edge. There's no doubt about that. And I think you guys would fit right in, actually.
Cool.
I myself have never been, so I guess I don't have a whole lot.
Yeah, we haven't
Right.
either. We haven't officially been.
We haven't either. But that's as far as talking about circling all the way back to live, which I think we didn't quite finish the question. We didn't answer it. We are going to start rehearsing after the show. We're starting band rehearsals, and we're going to be playing somewhat locally for a while, just to have. We call them throwaway shows. It's not really a great
I
word.
hate to say throwaway show.
I do
It's
too.
more
Yeah.
like practice.
You got to come up with a better phrase than that.
It's more like live. It's more like
Practice. It's
live practice.
Warm-ups. Yeah, tune-up
Live
shows.
practice.
Yeah, so local restaurants or local.
Yeah.
There's a hemp farm in Smithville where I live. I moved out of Nashville, man, because Nashville's gone crazy, and Beau's still there. But I'm about an hour out of Nashville, and kind of a lake community. And it's a small town, but it's actually the nursery capital of the world around there. So a lot of nurseries. And there's a guy that does a festival down there called Hemp Fest. And
cool.
Might be right up our alley.
That could be right up my alley too. I don't know.
so he's a bird driver. He's a great guy, and he does a lot for just the city in general. But he has some decent acts there. And so we're gonna. I don't know if we'll be at that one, but we'll be playing there. And so yeah, we're working on stuff. We will. After I had to get kind of prog stock, I want to say out of the way, but I'd like for that to be older, so I could, because it's all about the album. And then it's like, oh, right, Beau, now we're gonna play live. Let's start rehearsing for that. And it's like, right, we gotta get the band together. So. So we're going to be playing next year locally. Yeah. We're trying to do a team up with another artist we won't talk about yet because it hasn't really been talked about, but there's interest, and we may actually be doing a double show, which may interest our prog fans specifically. So be looking for that on the website. And then of course our anchor show will be Prog Stock.
Oh yeah,
and then hopefully cruise the edge that next year.
Let's hope so. We're gonna be calling the right people and make sure that happens. It needs to happen. Now the new album is just amazing, guys. I've been listening to it nonstop. I've been playing it on the ukulele.
Oh, I love it. Sweet. Yeah.
Oh, Nobody.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody.
That's the Pink Floyd influence, right?
Yeah. So good. Thanks, Beau. That song's just, it's got me hardcore. I am going to admit that's my favorite song on the album right now. Cool. So solid. The record's great. It drops this week, people. October 14th. Evership, the Uncrowned King, Act 2. You fools know how much I love Part 1. So Act 2, you know it's going to be good. I'm not going to give away my score yet. I'm probably going to do my review Tuesday. So next week, this week on the Prog Corner, it's Evership week. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, yeah, we need to make sure that all our prog friends understand just how great this new record is. I really feel like something's happening here for you guys, and I'm excited to be just a little small part in trying to launch you guys out into the bigger, badder world out there. So thanks for spending some time with me today. You guys have an awesome set. Enjoy Prog Stock. I wish I was there with you.
Well, us too. But one day.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I got these Iron Maiden tickets 16 months ago.
Dude,
so I was locked in.
I would have done the same thing.
Well, that's a bucket list. But as you scratch bands off your bucket list, you have other bands that started appearing on it. And absolutely Evership is on my list now. So it's we'll be seeing you guys soon.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Scott, so much.
Anything else you guys want to talk about before we cut this off? We've been at it over an hour, and I know people got short attention spans, and I don't do a whole lot of editing, so it's probably going to be about this length when we're done.
No, we're good, man. Just again, thank you for all your kind words over the years, and we're glad you're enjoying the project and appreciate your help in getting us visible to people. So
yes,
thanks.
Definitely. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on, and I couldn't have picked a better couple of dudes to actually be the very first guests in the history of the Prog Corners. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning. Have a great set tonight. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Beau. Continued luck, continued success. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. Talk to you later.
Hey, that was the great Shane Atkinson, Beau West from Evership. Oh my goodness gracious. You people, do yourselves a favor. check it out. The new album drops on Friday, and it's awesome. I'm not going to give away my score yet, but I think you are probably getting a hint about what it is. So anyway, I am Scott from the Prog Corner. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you soon. Peace in the Middle East. Yeah, that's how we do it. That's how we do it.
That's awesome.
You know, people